Welcome to the summit, What is Effortless Wholeness? And I can now introduce you to Salvadore Poe. Hi, Salvadore.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, so you're all about our true nature. You're pointing to that, the essence we are, and yeah, reality. And you're also an author, and I've read your book, Blown Wide Open, and it's an absolutely beautiful book. It's a collection of holidays where you kind of sit with yourself, you could say, or you see for yourself what is your essence. So it's a guide, and you're making an audible version right now, which is absolutely beautiful. Your voice is so nice, the tempo. So I'm excited about that, and that's going to be ready in a few months. And then you also written some other books, The Way of Freedom, which is like conversations, question answers. And you also have Liberation is the End of the Spiritual Path. And you have the book right there to show.
This is my first book, Liberation Is. It's inquiries into coming to recognize freedom for yourself. So it's just actually the inquiry work that I do, so you can recognize freedom for yourself and come to know liberation. So
Yes.
that's that.
Yeah, so we're already liberated. Liberation is what is. And you use the term knowing a lot. And what do you mean by knowing? That's our essence. That's who we are, the knowing.
First of all words are really temporary. They're not they're not the thing. But since I do share with people, I do need to use some words. So what I try to do is not use any words that can be objectifiable, because who you are is not an object. You're the pure subject, if even that. So, for example, the word awareness or something, when someone says, I am awareness, that's a subtle kind of an object, isn't it? I am awareness. So I just say, you're knowing what is. You are the knowing of what is. So there's no object there. And the best way to do it is to see. So if we don't attend to anything in particular, not any objects of mind or body, don't deny anything. Everything's fine. But for a moment, just don't attend to anything and just allow attention to be blown wide open here and now.
Mm.
I am. We can't deny that. And we can't deny that knowing is here. Knowing, not as a thing, simply knowing. Everything is equally known here, isn't it? And so I say you're not the object of knowing, like the body, mind, organism, although you're that too in appearance. But for the purpose of having what I call a shift of knowing, I say essentially you are the knowing of all of this. And you can see now if you just don't attend to any object for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the knowing of everything, like this room, this body I feel, and my breath I feel, and I see you, and this the knowing of life.
No, those are the objects of knowing. Those are fine, but I want you to turn attention around. That's still subject object. I know the breaths. I know the things in the room. I know you. That's still subject object. What I'm suggesting is pure subject. I know that I am, not as an object, simply knowing. So just for a moment, Susan, I'll say it and so everybody watching can just do it themselves. Just for a moment, not any subject object, just simply pure subject. I am. So if you recognize what I'm saying, everyone watching, this is what I call a shift of knowing. It's not an event, it's just turning attention away from objects to pure subject, I.
Yeah, just knowing. Nothing in particular, just the knowing.
Everything is known equally to and within I. So, but for the moment, I want you to just notice I. Not even I am body, mind, just simply knowing. And within this knowing, of course, everything is appearing. And this, I say, this knowing is who you are essentially.
Yeah, it's like space. You're knowing like space, just what happens.
Yeah, I don't even like the word use. Yes, you can say that. Again, these words are just all interchangeable and disposable. But yeah, you could say space. I don't use the word space because even space is a subtle object, isn't it? You're not an object. I mean, you do appear as an object. It's called Sal or Susan, but essentially, you are not an object at all. You're no thing, no thing. So even the word space can be subtly objectified. So for the purpose of us coming to recognize freedom and liberation, and this is, of course, why I have my 8-week intensives, because it's not trivial, but this is the beginning where we turn attention around to notice I, pure subject, and from here we can come to liberate our mind from, well, the suffering and ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like you're liberated from the thoughts, the feelings, the senses, what happens. It's just, it comes and goes, but you're not grasping onto any of it. It's just like it comes and goes and moves through you.
That's a bit experiential. So for, and I just say, I make it simple. I just say for a moment, recognize this. I don't say get into a state of constantly being pure subject or something like that. That would be a new state of experience of consciousness. I say for a moment, come to see something that essentially I am free. And when you come to know essentially I am free, and when it's doubtless, which is what inquiry is about, making it doubtless, then life carries on and thoughts come and go, no problem. Attention can go to thoughts. You can even say, I am Salvador. I say, I am Salvador, no problem. No longer is there a problem with whatever is appearing. No longer are you arguing with what is appearing. No longer are you trying to get rid of or seek to change what is appearing. Because you know essentially that you're free. You've come to rest in this, not as a new state of experience, because that comes and goes. Attention goes to nothing itself, and attention goes to all of the objects of thoughts, emotions, movement. None of it is excluded. But up until now, up until we come to recognize our own essential nature of freedom, we're completely deluded in believing we are only these thoughts, emotions, and sensations. And this causes our suffering because it's a very limited and contracted experience of life. Coming to know freedom just changes that. Blown wide open, your experience is blown wide open. Sometimes your experience is contracted in thoughts and emotions, but no problem, because now you know something different. So liberation is about knowing who you are and being finished arguing with what you are as a form, because you know who you are at essence. And this brings peace and contentment and fulfillment and these kinds of things.
So there's no arguing or no resistance to what happens, and is free. You could say, yeah, it's liberated, it's free. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's a very, very, very big thing. It doesn't seem like the great enlightenment in 88 font bold enlightenment, but yes, that is a big thing, to come to complete rest and contentment in one's life, which is really all we want. And this is what I call freedom or liberation. And so, yes, there's no arguer with what is any longer. And that arguer is ego. That arguer is that resistance to what is, that wanting to change what is, that thinking that there's something wrong with what is, can only obviously be ego. And I just call it the arguer. So when that arguer is finished, when there's no longer an arguer there, because we know we're free, then there's no longer an arguer there, then that's the end of ego.
Well, there is this sense of there being a person here, or I'm here. There's this sense of consciousness that I'm a self.
That's all fine, of course. What's wrong with that? That sense of me, that sense of a feeling that I am here, is ephemeral. This comes and goes because you don't always have it. You don't have it in deep sleep, and you also don't always have it during the day either. So the sense of I comes and goes, which proves that there is actually no I here. If there was an I here, it would be always here. The I that is always here is knowing, because you know everything that appears. Since you've came out of the womb, you've actually known every experience that's happened to the body, mind, organism, consciously or subconsciously. So whether you're knowing only thoughts and thinking there's a self there, you're still knowing that If you think there's an ego there, you're knowing that ego. Or if you're blown wide open, just pure subject knowing yourself in this way, you're knowing that as well. Or if you're knowing a movie you're watching, or a friend you're talking to, or a great mystical experience, even the most magnificent mystical experience, you're knowing that as well. So my work is turn around and see who's knowing all of this. And who is it? It's you. So, and I say there isn't a big you like the self, and a small you, the self. There's only you. There's only you. And you appear as nothing and as everything. Now, what we do is who I am, make a mistake, and I believe, and it's called the original sin, and I believe that I am only limited to this body.
Hmm.
Mistake. This is because I am unlimited and vast, unlimited, ubiquitous, and I mistakenly believe I am only this body mind, this limited body mind organism, pure contraction and suffering. That's the original sin. That's the original mistake. So what I do, my work is about turning that around, a shift of knowing 180 degrees to see that, in fact, I am the essence of it all. I'm not denying this form. I'm not even denying the appearance of a so-called self that comes and goes. I'm not denying any of it. I just know who I am essentially. And this is freedom. And this brings peace. It brings ease of being, contentment, the end of arguing. I
Yeah.
say it brings liberation.
Yes, you also, the holiday term that you use, it's like a holiday. What do you mean by holiday?
Good question. So, holiday is the end of your world. It's like an atom bomb blowing up your world. By that, I mean all your past and future, the whole story of you that you think you are. It's blowing all of that up completely. It's seeing what's actually true, that you only are actually here and now. That's all you are, is here and now. You have no history. It's coming to see, well, many things, but just, and this is what's coming to me now. You come to see that you have no history. You only exist now. This is who you are, essentially. What it's not is just to get a little bit of break from your mind or your problems and get a little peace for a minute. Although that happens, but that's not the goal. It's not like being on meditation and trying to get some bliss and peace. It's the end of your world. It's recognizing who you are, essentially, and becoming doubtless in that. So a holiday is both the beginning of freedom and it's the end of freedom. It is freedom. A holiday is freedom, but you may not recognize right away that it is freedom because we have an idea of what things are. So, but it's also it's the beginning of freedom, but it's also the end. And so I say that it's very, very simple. A holiday, just not attending to anything at all, just being here and now, no time, no past, no future, no self, nothing. It's very simple, but it's not trivial because we have a lifetime of habit, of tendencies, of impressions that keep us in bondage, so-called bondage, and suffering and misidentification. And that stuff all has to be removed. And that's removed by inquiry, by seeing what's true over and over. And that's why I spend time with people on intensives, 8 weeks online, a couple of weeks here in India, and why I offer ongoing support afterwards, because it's not a trivial matter, as simple as it is. So a holiday is it's a big deal. It's very simple in one way, but it's a big deal in another way.
Yeah, so it's like we are the knowing of it, the knowing of everything that goes on, like thoughts and feelings and senses, perceptions, world forms, everything, life. And it's that we are the knowing of it, that but it's temporary, it comes and goes, and so it's not even real.
Yeah, what you're saying is true. Um, but it's not just seeing that everything is not real, because when emotion is appearing, of course it seems real, at least seems real, right? You feel it, and I don't deny that at all. That's completely fine. But what's not real is the story behind it, for example. And so what this thing is, to see who you are essentially, which is not changing. This has not changed your entire life. You've been knowing everything that's happened your entire life. That aspect of you, the unchanging aspect of you, is permanent. The changeful aspect of you is everything within form. That's the body, the mind, the sensations, the experiences, the thoughts, the emotions. These things, I don't deny them. They appear, but they're ephemeral. They come and go. We believe we are only that, and we believe that that's not ephemeral. We believe that there's a solidity and a permanence to that, and this is why we suffer, because we believe this is who I am, and we conflate past and future into this one ball of what I am now. And that is a complete illusion. That's just simply not true. And inquiry shows you for yourself that that's not true, in your own knowing, that I am only here now knowing, and I am as I am appearing now only. There's nothing behind the curtain of this. There's only what's appearing now. There's none of the conflated past and future story at all. It doesn't exist. So this is what a holiday reveals, and this is what I say is where freedom and liberation lay, is in coming to know this doubtlessly. Know what's true, and truth shall set you free. What's true is that I exist now as knowing and appearing as this ephemeral form. But this ephemeral form doesn't have to cause suffering, because it's gone. It's already gone. It's already gone. It's constantly gone. Like I say, like a wave, if you can't put your finger in a wave and say this is the wave, because it's already changed, it's already gone. You can't put your finger in this self and say this is self, because it's already changed, it's already gone. When this is doubtless, then really you've come to peace and rest in your life. You have. And the time-based suffering, psychological time-based suffering from past and future fear, regret, all of this stuff, it has very little, if any, power any longer. And mostly you can be at peace and in harmony with life and yourself and all the nice things, you know.
Yeah. Mm.
That's the natural human condition, just flowing and being happy. The normal human condition is a very contracted, constricted, self-focused suffering mechanism. That's the normal human condition.
And that contracted human condition, that sense of separate self, that's what we are a lot. I mean, that's what we identify with.
Exactly. So again, the problem is that we have come to believe that that I is something solid, and then that's who we are exclusively. Very exclusive, right? Very exclusive, limited, contracted, and solid I. We feel, and so that's a very limited way to know ourselves, actually. But when when you have a shift of knowing, and you know yourself as ubiquitous knowing that has no boundary, no circumference, no center, and includes this shifting, moving movement of I, then all of a sudden you know yourself in a very different way, don't you? And so then there's less preciousness on this I, less fear because of this rising of I, you see? So that's a completely different way of knowing oneself, which, unless we're shown, we won't find, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and we think we are someone, but you use the term no thing or nothing.
Like if we just relax the focus of attention now, and we see there's no past, there's no future, there's only this. When I say there's nothing, I mean conceptually, we're nothing conceptually, um, we're nothing spiritual or philosophical or anything like that. Any particular description uh, of is not who we are essentially. Now you can put descriptions on the body, mind, organism. This body's name is Salvadore. Came from the United States, and in this and that male body. You can put descriptions, and then you would say this is something. Well, this body, mind, organism can be seen as something. But when you ignore all of that for just for a moment, I always say, and you just simply be here knowing, you see who you are essentially as knowing is no thing or nothing. So when I say there's nothing, I mean there's nothing conceptual. There's nothing that we've held on to, uh, mistakenly held on to as who we are essentially. So when we say I, normally when we say I, we're referring to this body, mind, organism with its story and preferences and ideas and concepts and definitions and descriptions. That's what when we say I, that's what we normally mean, but that's a very limited uh, view of who I am. I don't deny that aspect because that's also true, but who I am essentially is none of that at all. You can say prior to all of that, because I am that which has been here the entire life of this body, mind, organism, through all of the myriad, manifold changes coming and going, experiences coming and going, preferences and beliefs coming and going, all changing constantly. None of them stay for even 1 millisecond. And yet this no thing who I am, has not changed at all since the very beginning. And that's true in my own experience, and it's true in your experience as well, if you just turn around and look. And I mean you, Susan, but whoever, I'm speaking rhetorically. If one turns around and looks at themselves, who they are, you see that I've been here the entire time. And this I, this essential I, is no thing at all. And I just say it's knowing, and knowing is not objectifiable. It's knowing, and I only say it's knowing because it's I who have been here knowing all of the changes of this body, mind, organism the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah, we're here. It's life. Everything is life.
Exactly. I've always been here as life, but even life is not something objectifiable. You can't objectify it. I don't say, you can't say I have life, because then you're saying I, the body, have life. You can say I am life. And again, life is another word that's not objectifiable either, actually, you see.
Yeah, words cannot describe it. It's indescribable.
Which is why, as you know, because you were on my intensive, I just get rid of all of the words. I say a word and then get rid of it. Say another word and then get rid of that as well, and go more and more essential to the most essential possible word, which is not the word nothing. And then you get rid of that word as well. And what's left? Not even nothing. So, as I said earlier, in I think the first half of the interview this morning, I use words, of course, because I have to communicate, but I don't put any particular value on words. And any words can be used if they do what they're intended to do, which is to help someone completely recognize their own freedom. Once that's recognized, those words they're meaningless. They're not needed at all, you know.
Yeah, words are just for communicating. Oh, yeah.
And then really, you know, the highest word is nothing. The highest word is when the words are gone, like just now, you and me here, no words, both knowing. This knowing is the same for you as it is for me. And this is silence. You could say silence and get rid of that word. And what's left? And so that's the highest communication, actually. It's the communication of union or yoga or one, you see.
That's the silence we are.
I just say essentially because we also are the manifested form as well. Like ocean is the so-called silence or the absolute, manifesting as a wave. I don't separate the two. There's no separation between the two. This appearance of Salvadore now, which is temporal and ephemeral and not solid, is an appearance of the essential I, not separate at all. So when I look at you, I'm looking at the essence, actually. When I look at you as form, or when I look at this body as form, I'm actually looking at the essence. Like when I look at ocean, if I look at a wave, I'm looking at ocean. I'm not looking at a wave, I'm looking at ocean itself. So for me, that's what, if there's a word non-duality, which I don't use that much, but that's it. There's no duality between the absolute, so-called absolute or essential, and the appearance, the ephemeral form. There's no separation between those two. They're one and the same. So there's nothing to be denied as well in form.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing to find and nothing hidden.
Yes, exactly. Nothing is more obvious than you, your essential being. There's nothing more obvious. It's you. It can't possibly be more obvious. Unfortunately, because we've been pointed to and looked in the wrong direction our whole life, we just completely overlook what is so glaringly obvious always for everyone. Even obvious, even if you don't know it's obvious, it's still obvious. So everyone knows who they are essentially. Somehow the so-called the veiling effect, which is called Maya, the Maya, in Indian tradition, the veiling effect, it veils truth. It's just, you could say, an illusion. The veiling of truth isn't even actual. It's not even there. It's never veiled. It's never hidden. It just seems to be hidden, and which is good news, because then it's very simple. It's very simple to come to know who you are, your essential being, because it's so obvious. It's just been overlooked. So that's what I do, and that's the beginning of the work, and that's that first initial recognition, which is so simple, obvious, and ordinary that it's so easily overlooked, is the very recognition that liberates your mind. And that's what needs liberation, the mind, from doubt, misidentification, concepts, all these things that you have been burdened with through samskaras, which are mental tendencies inculcated by culture and society and religion. All of that stuff has fooled you into believing something that's not actually true. So the beginning of my work is the very simple shift of knowing. And this shift of knowing is what, through more inquiry and devotion to this truth, liberates the mind of all of the doubt and ignorance and misconception, until mind is liberated and you recognize freedom as your essential being, and it cannot be doubted any longer.
Yeah, that's what you're all about, and your intensive is all about pointing to the essence, the nature we are, and you also, you kind of reveal all these beliefs we have, that they are not true or they are not real, and it's just beliefs. And like, for example, free will, we all believe we have free will, but it's like, no, there is no free will, not even the 2%, or it's, there's no free will. And it's just like, whoa, what?
So, maybe some people speak about it philosophically, but as you know, I don't speak philosophically. I let people see for themselves via inquiries. So what we come to see in the course of the 2 weeks that we spend on this particular topic is just looking in our own experience. We see that we've actually never created anything. Even if the desire or intention or motivation appears to do something, we didn't create this. We haven't created any of it. So I don't deny that there's desire and intention and motivation and action. I don't deny that those things are. What I say is that they're not self-created at all. There is no one here to create those things. So I don't deny action. I don't deny whatever anyone desires or intends is fine. But we really can't take credit for anything, because we see in our own experience that we have no idea why something appears. And I always ask people, and I ask on the intensive, if you think you're the creator, please tell me your next thought. Or please create your next thought. You see, you can't do it, because the next thought will just appear as it appears. Or please create your next intention. Again, you can't do that either, because the intention, for whatever it may be, will appear or not. And so, the benefit of knowing this, first of all, it brings a lot of peace to your life, because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do, and we put a lot of blame on ourselves and others because of what they've done. So, if you come to the intensive, you'll hear me say, I feel that the belief in free will is one of the biggest malignancies ever perpetrated on the human mind, because look at the carnage. Look at the justice system, for example. Punishment. I don't believe in punishment. Look at what we've done with this belief in free will: blame, acrimony, judgment, hatred, even. But when we see for ourselves that we've never created one single thing about ourselves, then we come to know compassion. And that doesn't mean we allow people to do bad things or someone to punch us in the nose. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying the birth of compassion comes from realizing that we have not created ourselves, so nor has anyone else. So that's why I say that's an extremely important inquiry.
Yeah, if you're only now, I can see there's no free will, because past or future, whoever you were or going to be, is not even real. There's just now, and what happens now, there's no free will in that. It's just what's happening. There's no one there to have free will, you could say.
That's that's a very, very, very simple and clear way to recognize this, Susan, which is good. If there's only now, if there's only what is now, then where has it come from? The truth is, there's nothing behind the curtain. There's only this. And if you really recognize there's nothing behind the curtain, there's only this, then this didn't come from anywhere. It simply is. And if it simply is, then there's no creator of it, because it simply is. So very good. That's a very, very good way to recognize. Susan, if someone recognizes that, really, that's really the end. You know, it needs to be recognized very clearly, as you were saying. But when you do recognize that there really is only this moment, there really is no past or future, there really is nothing behind the curtain of this, then there's no meaning, there's no purpose, it sounds radical maybe, but it's true. You see for yourself, you know.
Yeah, it's reality. It's truth. It's what we are. It's what is. And it just seems kind of maybe meaningless or purposeless, but it's what is.
It's reality.
Yeah.
It's reality. So what is, and so, you know, this brings peace to your being, because in the belief in free will and the belief in doership creates not only stress for yourself and blame for yourself and judgment for yourself, but also for others. So there's it's not a lot of peace in that, you know. Peace lay in the fact that there's no one here, and whatever is. It's like, okay. And you could also call it surrender if you wanted to. Not that you actually do any surrendering, but the true surrender is also self-realization. It's also bhakti. It's also the end of ego. You see, that's the true surrender. There's no one here. That's about as surrendered as you can be, you know.
Feels like human beings are special in a way, because we are self-aware, we are conscious of creation or of this. And whereas animals, they I don't have that same self-awareness. And it seems like human beings are a little special in that way. We makes us feel special, and that we are here to create. Or
And that's based on, like you said, consciousness. It's based on the five senses, thoughts, emotions, and at the root, consciousness itself. Because even if all the senses were gone, you would still know that you are consciously. You would still be conscious, not of anything in particular. You would still be conscious that first seed, I am, separate, could still be here. And so, yeah, and so I don't deny that that exists. I'm not saying that there's no feeling of I. I'm saying that feeling of I is just an ephemeral movement, like a wave coming and going. Because it, you know, yeah, I can say I am Salvador, and I can feel consciousness and the sensations and the thoughts and everything here. So I don't deny that. I deny that it's a substantial, solid entity. I say it's not. It's a movement only. It's an ephemeral movement, and it's in constant change. So that in that way, there is no I in that way, but it doesn't mean there is not the feeling coming and going of an I coming and going. And I see no issue with that whatsoever.
so you include that. Yeah, you include everything. It's unconditional, including the sense of I.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Salvador. And your message is so clear.
I know it's not a lot for us to talk about because you were with me for 8 weeks on the intensive. You got the message, so we just can be together and not say anything, and everything is clear. So that's good.
Can you talk about your intensive briefly?
the idea of the intensive is to recognize your freedom and become doubtless by the end, and your spiritual path is finished. It's over. Excuse me. And so, in many of our traditional teachings and sadhanas and everything, we meditate or do spiritual practices in order to eventually, hopefully, come to self-realization. Eventually, if we're lucky, 40 years or 40 lifetimes. Well, we start that on day one. That's the first thing. That's where we start, which is called in Indian technology, in Indian terminology, it's called jnana. Jnana means self-knowledge. So we start with self-knowledge. That's where we begin for the first 3 weeks, and that that becomes very clear. And then the next part for the next 2 weeks is called bhakti, and in our Western, well, in even Eastern too, in what we normally think of as bhakti, is being devoted to the guru or to God or something other than oneself. And I say that's the kindergarten bhakti. The true bhakti is really the same as self-realization. It's being devoted to yourself, your essential being of freedom. That's the true bhakti. And that is what really helps to liberate the mind, because you start living freedom in this way. So we spend 2 weeks on that. And then we spend 2 weeks on this concept of free will, the doership. And we find out in our own complete recognition and experience that we have actually never created one single thing that's ever happened in our life. Nothing. We're not the doer. There's no free will. There's only what is. And this is very important, because this leads to true compassion. Because if you see that you've never created yourself, you also see that no one has created themselves either. Everyone simply is what they are. So the value of that is true compassion. And then the last meeting is called yoga or union, or um, coming full circle. I call it coming full circles, really seeing that there's no separation between the absolute and form, that I, as I'm appearing now, am it, what I've been seeking. And this is full circle, and this is the end of the spiritual path. So that's basically what the intensive is about, with a lot of laughter also.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely fun as well. It's just it's a fun holiday, you could say, intensive. Yeah, and you also have a follow up afterwards. That's nice too. That you, because there are all these habits, and it's not just going away overnight, right? It's like it's embodied. It's so ingrained in us.
No, the intensive is the end, but it's also the beginning of the ends, because as simple as recognizing freedom is, it's not trivial. We have a lifetime, and we have the history of the human mind of ignorance, so it's not trivial. So after an intensive, I offer ongoing free support forever, because I have weekly meetings I call the Lion's Den, and we have maybe 150 people or something. And so we meet each week on Saturday, and we get together, and people can ask questions or just be together in freedom. And if you come to those meetings, you're also welcome to about a few hundred audios from the past 8 years of Lions Dens. Those are all free as well. And then we have the Lions community of friends, which is people that want to meet together without me. They just meet, they set up meetings, and they have meetings together and just come together to meet in freedom. So there's a lot of ongoing support for living freedom, because once you recognize freedom, then you start living freedom. And then you stick around as long as you like, or come and go as you please. And my only interest really is just letting people know for themselves that they're free, and carry on with their life, not to be addicted to me or any other teacher or teaching, just to come to know freedom, and carry on living happy and content. For letting me share that, Susan. Thank you. Good. Because the intensive is coming in about a month from now. It starts. So if any of your people watching today are interested, uh, if you find it interesting, you can go to my website. It's liberationis.com, and you can check it out there and see if it's something that you find interesting.
It's good. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Susan. It's good to see you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thanks for having me again.
Thank you, Salvador. Thank you so much.